All right, so we're going to go ahead and learn the motorcycle piece by piece. I got that camera, this camera, so you can see everything. And this is just to get you familiarized. Now, like I said, it's just like bowling, just like starting a new game. You have to know the rules. You have to kind of know what things are. So I like to do everything with full gear on because I like to practice how I preach. And, I always ride with full gear. So if you do have full gear, it's a good idea to practice. And I'm doing it here at the apartment complex. Now, you probably have a new bike. It was delivered to you. You don't know how to ride it. Maybe you don't even have your permit yet. Hopefully, you go get your permit. It's just the written part in some areas. But we're going to go ahead and practice basically just staying in this parking spot. I got my overhang, so if you're in a garage, you can do it in the garage. Make sure you have the garage open because you might have exhaust and you don't want to suffocate there. But driveway, maybe right in front of your house on the street. We're not riding anywhere. We're just learning the actual systems here and understanding. I got my rock form mount with my phone so I could see what everything's happening here. But we're going to go ahead and just jump into it. So we have to learn the parts of the motorcycle. So we talk about primary controls. We talk about secondary controls. These are all terms you're going to utilize in the MSF. So let's just go over those key terms here. So primary controls, what are they? You have your throttle right here. This is going to be on the right side, so it's going to be that whole throttle thing. This is going to give the bike power. You have a front brake lever on the right side. That's going to control your front brake on your tire on the front. That's going to give you a lot of power in braking. This is when I say progressive braking later on. You're using a lot of that front hand doing that. On the left side, this hand grip, this is a hand grip, but it's a throttle, but this hand grip itself does not move. It should not move. So if it does, you might need to repair it. So it should not move. So that's going to be a key indicator of what's different on both sides. The front lever over here on the left-hand side, that is called the clutch lever. The clutch lever goes all the way. The front brake lever gives you a lot of resistance because it's trying to brake. So the clutch lever will go all the way, and that's going to engage and disengage the power to the rear wheel. So you can give this a ton of power, and we got FedEx, this is part of the deal here. You can give it a ton of power, but then if you pull the clutch lever, none of that power will go to the rear wheel. So if you ever run into a situation, you're like, oh crap, squeeze that front lever, and it'll remove all power to that rear wheel no matter what. So that's really important. That's a safety thing. So if you ever get out of control, squeeze that front lever all the way. And if you're going to crash into something, give it some front brake pressure, which we'll talk about later. So primary controls, like I said, let's go over it real quick. We have the throttle, the front brake lever. We have the clutch lever. The handlebars, to me, are a primary control because you need it to turn. And then let's go ahead and move down to here. We have the shift lever on the left foot. The shift lever is going to go down 1 for first gear, and then it's like a half click up for neutral, another half click for second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Those second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth is going to be a full click. You'll feel it when you start doing it, so we'll go ahead and move off on that one. We're going to go around the bike. And we have the rear brake lever on the right foot. So if you are a car driver going into motorcycling, it's going to be very natural for you to slam that rear brake because you're used to using your right foot to apply the brakes on the car. So be careful with that one because it only applies about 20-30% power. You really want to utilize that front brake most of the time. If you can do both, that's great. But as a beginner, we're going to focus really on that front brake, and then we'll use some rear brake when we get a little more confident with that. So those are the primary controls. Once again, throttle, front brake. We have our clutch lever. We have our handlebars. We have our shift lever on the left side. And we have our rear brake on the right side. Primary controls. Secondary controls are going to be everything else basically. So usually you're going to have a bunch of buttons or very minimal buttons depending on the model motorcycle you get. This is a Honda Rebel 500. So what I have here is the engine cutoff switch. Now this is going to be something just like the key where you use your thumb and it'll shut off the engine, the power to the engine. The battery will still stay on, but that will shut off power. And that's good for when you're parking and you don't want to reach over or wherever your key is at. You could just stop and park, shut off the engine, and then you can side stand down and then turn off the battery with the key. We have our hazard lights right here. This is the electric start. So once you turn the key on and you're ready to go, everything is doing its checks, you can click this button right here and start the actual bike. Okay. So right here we have high beams and low beams. So these are your yeah, you're passing. This says pass right there. So you can actually click that sometimes on some models and it'll just flash the high beams. But these are your high beams and low beams button. You have your electric horn. Some horns are pneumatic, so air, but most bikes have an electric horn. Right now it's not doing anything because the bike's not on. We have right here our turn signals. Okay, some turn signals, they auto cancel when you actually finish the turn, like in a car. But sometimes, and most times with the motorcycles, is that when you turn left, it will stay on the whole time. So sometimes you have to push it in to cancel. So turn right, push it in to cancel. That's pretty much the system right there. So now what we're going to be doing is actually turning on the bike. So we just familiarize ourselves with the primary and secondary controls. Now we're going to turn on the bike. And once again, we're in a neighborhood and it's about 3 p.m. here, so nobody's really out and about. So I'm not going to hopefully bother anybody because it's not loud either way. So right here is the key for the Honda Rebel. This is where it goes. So you just put it in and you turn it and everything. Sometimes it's right in the middle of the stem right here in the motorcycle. So find out where you put your key. So just like a car, if you have an older car, not a key fob, you just turn it. And what happens is that it starts up the process when it comes to the motorcycle. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back off so that there's nothing here. I'm going to turn it back on. And it's going to go ahead and do the reboot process just like in a car. So right now it's showing that it's neutral. We have a neutral green light. That is important to understand and know. We have the engine oil and ABS right here. So that engine oil will kick off once I start the bike itself. Like I said, here's the shut off switch and everything. So even if it's off and I try to do this, it won't work. It'll only turn on. It's doing the checks again if I do that. And it's on right here. Okay, so we turned on the bike. Now what I like to do, and this is a good habit for you to do, is once you have the battery on, you check and make sure you have your running lights right here. Those work pretty well. Let's make sure my headlight is on. Headlight is on. I have my turn signal running lights on. And I'm going to just do a quick check. You don't have to do this every time. I just want to show you guys what it looks like. So when I have it turning left, there's the left indicator. Does the left indicator work? Yes, it does. Left indicator work? Yes, it does. Let's go ahead and practice pushing it in. It cancels there, cancels, cancels. So I'm just showing you what the primary controls look like too. So I'm turning right, turning right, turning right. Very cool. So once again, practicing pushing it in, cancels it. So here's the hazards. I pushed it in, it stays on. Hazards are working. Hazards are working. We're just playing with the controls themselves. We're not really just doing a pre-ride check. We're just doing the controls to show you. Here's the horn. It makes a little noise, not a big deal. Let's go ahead and do the high beams. So there's the indicator for the high beams. It's blue. And now all 4 of the LEDs are on. So if I go ahead and turn it off, only 2 of them. Okay. And let's go ahead and double check the pass button too. So I click it down for my bike. So some motorcycles have cruise control, some motorcycles have traction control, different modules. You can play with the buttons right here. You can change your trip meter and everything. You know, average 51.7 miles per gallon, all that stuff. This is a lot of fun. Now what you don't want to do is leave your battery on the whole time. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off real quick. Because now what we're going to do, and I've been showing you briefly how to mount the motorcycle. So what we're going to do next, now that we kind of got an idea of where all the controls are, once again, real quick, throttle, front brake, clutch lever, shift lever, rear brake. Let's go ahead and turn on the motorcycle. Now, this is going to be a little scary at start, you know, you've never really done it. You're scared it might fly off and everything. So what we're going to make sure that's going to happen is that we're going to be in neutral, okay? So if you've only driven automatic cars, there really is no neutral. Unless you put it in neutral. So with a manual transmission, you have to actually put it in gear. One of the main things that it wants to stay in is neutral. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the bike real quick. And what I mentioned earlier is that green light indicates that it's neutral. Now, if you're if you got an older motorcycle or there's a short in the circuits somewhere, sometimes that green neutral won't pop up even though you are in neutral. So I don't really trust neutral too much, that green light. I do like that it does have a gear indicator on the bike itself, but still, I don't trust it. And one way you can verify it in an analog, I guess, way or a physical way is I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this front brake. I'm going to lift it off its side stand. And right now it won't work. It won't move because of the front brake. But if I let go of the front brake, it should be able to move. Now that's important. Okay, so if it was in first gear, I'm just going to pop it in first gear real quick. You notice the green light's off. It says it's in first gear. If I lift it up, no front brake, it gets stuck. It gets stuck. So that's really important. I'm going to do a half click up right now. There it is in neutral. And that's important when you park on a hill. I like parking in first gear. Maybe some people they can't just roll it away. They might, if they don't know anything about motorcycles, they get stuck in like what's going on. So I don't know. So here we go. So we're in neutral. I verified it's in neutral. Let's go ahead and verify it one more time. Yep, it's in neutral. You don't have to do this every time, but I like to show you. So we're in neutral. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the front brake. I'm going to swing my leg over and sit. Now I'm on the side stand still. It's kind of leaned over a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the front brake, hand the handlebars, the one that doesn't move on the left, sit it straight up. Okay, now I'm sitting here. My feet are kind of keeping it planted. Feel pretty comfortable. Now what I'm going to do is lift my side stand up. That's that thing that was on the side, that like a kickstand on a bicycle. Use my heel, lift it up. Very good. So you can also test if it's a neutral by doing it this way, just sitting on the bike. So before you take off, kind of double check. Once again, if it's in first gear, it's going to get stuck. It's not going anywhere. Okay, let's go ahead and get it into neutral. Half click up. There it is in neutral. Now, since we're in neutral, it won't take off when we start the bike. Definitely some of the newer ones won't take off if you have the side stand down in first gear. But you see a lot of people freak out when you take off in first gear because then it really launches you a little bit, okay? Especially if you dump the clutch out. You see those whiskey throttle people. So I'm going to show you what it looks like starting it up in neutral right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I'm going to turn it back on. Battery is starting everything. Engine shut off is off. Engine shut off is on. And I'm going to go ahead and squeeze in the clutch. I'm not going to twist the throttle to give it gas, and I'm going to hit this electric start. So now the bike is on. Now I double check again, and you're going to do this quickly. You don't have to do it slowly every single time. You just get used to it to the point where you're in and out real quick. So I'm going to slowly release the clutch lever, because remember, when you squeeze the clutch lever, no power goes to the rear wheel. Hey, look, it's all the way out. I'm in neutral. It's a real neutral. Now, what does it look like when you stall? This is a pretty scary thing. So I'm going to show you. It's not usually a big deal. That's why you always have your hands on the handlebars. You don't just sit back here and go boop, and then you just like give it throttle, whatever. You don't do that. I'm going to go ahead and put it in first gear, clutch in, and I'm just going to let it out super quick. We're going to talk about friction zone, how to get going right after this, but this is what happens when you let it out super quick. That's it. And remember, it's in first gear, so it doesn't want to roll anymore. So it's not like you do that and then the bike's going to take off, or you do that and the bike's going to keep rolling and you're going to have to like try to figure things out. No, it's stalled. It's stuck right here, just like if it was in first gear trying to move it. So we're going to go ahead and put it in neutral again. And we're going to go ahead and turn off the bike. And we're going to go ahead and squeeze the front brake lever. We're going to go ahead and put the side stand down, set it on the side stand. It feels secure. I'm going to swing my leg back over, and I'm going to get off the bike. So that is how you start it and stop it. So we went over what all the controls are, how to start and stop it. That's going to be the easiest thing that we're going to do. Okay, this is something you can do in your apartment complex, or in your driveway, or in your garage. You obviously don't want to be in the garage with enclosed space, the garage door down with the engine going, but this is something that you're going to need to know. So this is like the tutorial intro to bowling and to playing pool, to playing darts, playing that new game. Is like, now you know how the machine works, but how to get from point A to point B, or how to ride around in traffic, that's where it starts getting a little tricky and where a lot of strategy starts to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into friction zone and braking, because those are huge things. Remember, friction zone is going to be the clutch and the braking, obviously the front brake. That's what we're going to practice right now. We'll practice the rear brake when we start riding around. But that's going to get you from point A to point B, which is going to be the end of this little parking spot. That's the whole point. Point A here, point B right there. That's it. So let's go ahead and jump into that one.